Vest.
Yes,
We'll
thank
turn
you.
the time over to you.
Thank you, Larry. I first of all want you to meet my children. Karen, she's put all these pictures on. I found the pictures though, but she put them on. And Laura, she's been helping me. And then I have a grandson, John, and his wife. And Matt also, and his wife, grandson. I actually have 25 grandchildren and 30 great-grandchildren. So I am kept busy most all the time. All right. I would like to start with a quote by Albert Einstein. He said, "There are only two ways to live your life. One is that nothing is a miracle, or one is everything is a miracle." And I thoroughly believe that it's a miracle that I'm here at Legacy. I never dreamt I would be here. And I be with all of you wonderful people and wonderful friends. Thank you so much. I just enjoyed meeting all of you and getting to know you. Well, I was born as actually Suzanne Palmer on September 2nd, 1938 in Burley, Idaho. My dad, W.W. Palmer, was a county agent. Now, if you were a farmer, you knew what a county agent was, but they knew everything about soils, how to grow things. He had graduated from the University of Idaho. He was one of 8 children that graduated from the University of Idaho, and his parents received an honorary degree. Imagine 8 children at that time going to college. So he was, and then my mom was a teacher, and she came from an educated family also. And her name was Mary B. Evans. Many times the maiden name was in the initial in the middle, like, so it stood for Mary Holbrook Evans. Now, when my mom and dad fell in love, they decided to elope because teachers could not be married. Can you believe that in that day? And so they eloped in April, and then no one knew until whenever school was out, probably June or May, I'm not sure. But anyway, they eloped, and they were both great people. Well, when World War II broke out, when we ended up in war with Japan, all the West Coast Japanese were sent to internment camps. And my dad was asked by the government to go down to Topaz and develop a agricultural farm, because how were they going to feed all these people that were in this prison camp? They didn't want to starve them. And so my dad went down there, and when we drove up, oh my gosh, I was so scared. These fences up 8 feet tall, and then wire all around. And then every corner there was soldiers guarding. And the only way you could get into these camps is by having a pass. So it was pretty scary for me. I lived, my mom and dad and my brother and my sister, we lived in a barrack. And it was 2 long rooms. One room was our kitchen and our front room, and the other room was our bedrooms, and partitioned by curtains or blankets. They did not have walls in between. So it was pretty scary. In fact, I had a lot of nightmares about getting tangled up in wire. And also, they didn't have sidewalks, so it was easy to fall. They had planks of wood. So you walked along there and it was easy to fall. So we wonder why they did this to the Japanese people. Well, there were two main reasons. They felt like they didn't know who would be an enemy, and the other one is that everybody hated the Japs because so many of the men had been killed in Pearl Harbor, and so they took their anger out on, they were throwing things at the Japs, so it was for their protection too. So this is where I started school. And you can see me right there in that white dress as we played. I do remember that I kind of struggled because in school, some of it was spoken in Japanese and some in English. So it was a little bit difficult for me. Well, when the World War II was over, my dad decided he wanted to try to farm. And so we moved to Malad, Idaho. That's where I got to be a cowboy for a little while. Now, it was fun to live where both my grandparents lived there. And I got to know my cousins, and this is where I got baptized. And my grandpa was the mayor of Malad. And while he was the mayor, he closed all the bars. So he was a very good man, and he was the man that baptized me. However, my dad, by then, he was a little bit older, and he didn't realize how hard farm work is. And so they also were used to a regular paycheck. And farmers have this even today. Very difficult to make a living on farming and very hard work. So my dad decided to take another job in Bismarck, North Dakota. This is in Bismarck, and this is where I went to school. And he took a job with the Bureau of Reclamation. Now, when President Eisenhower, when all these soldiers came home, they needed to be employed. And so he put them to work building highways. This is why we have good highways today, and also dams. There was not any dams, what you might say, and my dad was in charge of building a dam up in North Dakota. And so Bismarck was kind of a big place, and so they had a rodeo every year, and oh, my hero, Gene Autry, he was there. And I got to be right by him and have my picture taken. I got copies after copies and sent them to all my cousins. I knew Gene Autry, and I think some of you guys knew him too. Well, it was very cold and windy in North Dakota. I remember that the snow was clear up to the clothesline, and it was in some bad winters in 1949 and 50. The church was held in a memorial hall. It was about 20 members. But while I was there, I contracted scarlet fever. Oh my goodness. And I ended up in the hospital on Christmas. And guess what I got? Shots like this 3 times a day. Back you know where. So it was not fun at all. There was no TV. There was only like coloring books, and I wasn't feeling good that I wanted to read. Well, even my brothers and sisters were not allowed to go to school, even though I was in the hospital. So they had to stay home too. Well, finally, I got better, and I was able to go home, but we had to air everything, the books. we had to put out on the lawn, so that all the germs would die. And because I was contagious, it was a contagious disease. And nowadays, if you get scarlet fever, it's treated by penicillin, and it's not hardly, you don't go to the hospital, that's for sure. All right, so while we lived in Bismarck, my grandmother passed away in Idaho, and I remember trying to get back to the funeral. We had to follow the snowplow to get to Idaho. Well, I think my parents started thinking, we need to be closer to family. And so we moved. My dad looked into another job again, and he went with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Now, this is a picture of all the different tribes in the United States. And the two that I'm familiar underlined with red, Arapaho and Shoshone. Well, I had no idea, nothing about Indians, but I soon learned. Yes, we moved to the Wind River Indian Reservation. And on this reservation had originally been the Shoshone Reservation, but the government decided to put the Arapahoes there temporarily until they could get another place to put the Arapahoes. Well, the government never followed through, but the government paid $8 million to let the Arapahoes stay on the reservation. And they changed it to the Wind River Reservation now. Now, my dad was the liaison between the Indians and the government. And so he was anxious to, get to know the Indians, and because he was settling whatever could have been a problem. And so we would go to the dances. Oh, we had fun. Now, the first thing, he would beat on the drums. Let's see if we can make some drums. With our knees, but these are our drums, and then we just go, ay, 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 ay. Now, the women danced the squaw dance all around in a circle. The men danced with all their feathers and everything like this, but we could only go dancing. And so now we just stamp our feet and go round we go. Hi, yi, 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 hi, yi, 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 hi, yi, 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 hi, yi, yi, yi. Good, you do good. You bit the drum, and wonderful. Well, we had a lot of fun on the Wind River Reservation. I went to this little school. My teacher had to teach 3 grades. And when we got there, there was a stove in the back. If you sat in the back, you cooked. If you sat in the front, you froze. And the teacher, it was her responsibility to build the fire, of course. And anyway, she was a relic of the past. Her father actually buried Sacagawea. He was a missionary there when and Sacagawea, there's a statue, and if you remember, Sacagawea was the Indian guide that guided Lewis and Clark to investigate the north and the south. Northwest. So this is a picture of Sacagawea, and that's where she's actually buried on the Wind River Reservation. Well, I enjoyed the school there a little bit, but my teacher always thought I was sick. You know why? I was only white. So one day, my friend and I decided we'd take advantage of that. We played hooky. Yes. But the sad part about it, we didn't have anything to do when we skipped school. Because there was on the reservation there was only a gas station and maybe a few grocery things. And so what did we do all day when I skipped school? And then, believe it or not, the next day I got sick. Don't play hooky. All right. It was here that I really joined 4-H a lot. I started out with sewing projects. My mother and dad were both perfectionists. Everything had to be just so or taken out. And so I started sewing, and I loved it. I have my little project thing, and those were the days when you could make a skirt for $1 practically. You know, fabric wasn't expensive. So it was really fun. And also, before long, we had lived close to the Wind River, and so my dad put up a corral, and I bought a couple of calves. So it was my responsibility to feed these calves every morning and night. That was my 4-H project also. And then I also had a garden, and that had to be perfect. It just had no weeds at all. So we really enjoyed it, and we had good experience in the 4-H thing. Now, my freshman year, they bused all of whoever wanted to into Lander, Wyoming, which was 16 miles away. And my friend and I decided we would try to be a cheerleader. Now, I show you this because I want you to know I didn't wear the short skirts or the skimpy tops. No. See, I have pants on there. And that was for football. Then for basketball, we had our circle skirts. You remember the circle skirt? And we wore bloomers. I mean, we didn't want to show anything. And white buck shoes.
They want to know which one is you.
Oh, it's that tall one in the middle.
Or the tigers.
Yes, you can show them, Karen, right there. Well, the seniors that were already cheerleaders were very upset that freshmen got elected to be cheerleaders. And plus 2 girls from the reservation. I mean, why would you let them be cheerleaders? Well, it really was a wonderful, positive thing, because my dad and mom had to take me 16 miles to every game, 16 miles back, and we grew closer as a family, and it was really a good thing. Well, one of the things, so we didn't have TV. We always had a piano, and we always sang around the piano. That was our entertainment. But the end of my sophomore year, we got transferred. Some kind of politics, I don't know, kind of like today, Democrats or Republicans. So anyway, we were transferred to Oregon. The Klamath Agency was the Klamath, Modoc, and Chippewa tribes. Now, it was a beautiful place, but we moved there right at the end of my sophomore year, and I didn't know a soul. And that Klamath Agency, there was only employees that lived there, and so I just was bored all summer long. It was no fun at all. It was beautiful, but not fun. But then when school started, we got bused to a little town called Chiloquin, and it was about 50 people, and about half Indian and half Caucasian. So it was about 50 people, and it was the year of the prom. Well, you know, junior prom is really something great, but you know what? They invited the whole town. And who was my date? My mom and dad. I had a beautiful dress, but it wasn't, what I dreamed of a prom. Oh my goodness. The next summer, I decided I'm not going to sit home. So I promptly went up and applied at Crater Lake. And they hired me. I was the only high school girl that got a job because they usually hire college kids. So I wasn't so bored. But it wasn't long before we got transferred again. My dad decided to take a job in Bemidji, Minnesota. See, right, well, it says Bemidji, Minnesota. We kind of grouped things together. And we moved there at Thanksgiving, my senior year. Oh my gosh, who gets moved again? Well, these were the Chippewa and Sioux Indians. And I did learn that people had different traditions. Each Indian tribe had different, and you had to be kind of careful because some of them didn't like some of the other ones. So you had to be kind of careful what you said. Well, we moved there in the dead of the winter. In fact, Bemidji claims to be the coldest place in the United States. One I remember going to school at 45 below, and we were not allowed to wear pants to school. We could wear them to school, walking there, but as soon as we got there, we had to take them off and put a skirt on before we could be in class. So we had to be really careful that we didn't have frostbite. It was so cold. But I always joined the chorus, the high school chorus, and before long I was able to sing at different activities. And the church that I went to was just a union hall, and you had to sweep all the cigarettes and everything out. It was just probably not many eights as this room, maybe 10 or 12 members of the church. So we had to clean it until the missionaries finally rented the Seventh-day Adventist church. So we went to church on Sunday and they went on Saturday. But it wasn't really inducive to bring friends to investigate the church because what do you say? See, am I Seventh-day Adventist or am I Latter-day Saint? Oh my goodness. So anyway, there was only about 500 people in this high school, and I was the only LDS person. For some reason, I never would date anybody that smoked or drank. So where do you think I wanted to go to college? BYU. I actually went to 4 elementaries, 3 high schools, and 7 different states. So I really got to travel my first years. So, oh my goodness, I got to go to BYU and all those boys were so cute. Oh, and they didn't drink or smoke. That was even better. Even though I did get kind of homesick for my mom and dad, but I did join the choir and do musical things. And this is where I lived, right here. And I had 6 roommates. I can't remember, but anyway, there were 6 of us. My roommate was Tomiko from Japan, and then I had the first black girl in the other right next bedroom from Africa, and then I had a girl that was 6'2", another one that was 4'10". Oh, we made quite a combination. I mean, I guess they figured since she lives with the Indians, she could live with anybody. So, I don't know. Anyway, I loved BYU, and growing up, they didn't have Come Follow Me, or they didn't have seminary. So I really, even though I knew that Jesus Christ was my leader, but I did not have a good knowledge. I'd never read the Book of Mormon. And so at BYU, I really appreciated the opportunity to be able to take those classes and get a better knowledge. Well, by the end of my sophomore year, I fell in love. Oh my goodness. Yes, with a young man by the name of Suzanne Vest. And he took me clear home from Payson to Minnesota to meet my parents. And we became engaged. He gave me a ring, and everything was all planned. But then I stayed home to work, and he went home too. And I started getting second thoughts. I don't know if I want to get married that young. I was only like end of my 18th year. And my mom and dad really wanted me to graduate. So I sent the ring back. Ooh. And I do have you know that I did graduate from BYU in elementary education and with music. Now, I went on, and by the time my senior year came along, guess what? I fell in love again. It does happen. So we were married in the Salt Lake Temple just before I graduated. We had no car. We walked or rode bikes. Finally, we decided to move to Sacramento, California. And when we moved there, we decided we better buy a car. So we got a Volkswagen Bug. Guess what? It only cost $2,000. It was when they first came out. And we had it paid off by the end of the summer because we both got summer jobs. Well, it was in Sacramento that my husband decided that he wanted to be a podiatrist, a foot doctor. So what that meant to me, 4 years of work, because there's no loans. If you didn't have the money, forget it. So I would work, and by the time I graduated, 4 years, I had Karen, one of my little daughters, and another daughter. So I had to take them to the babysitters all the time. So when we finally decided that we would move to Fresno to set up a practice, we have a picture. This is my little family. I have 5 little kids there, the cutest little kids you ever seen. But now my 6th child was my biggest problem. My husband. All right. You can identify with that, okay? Now this is where we lived. We had a very nice home, and we had 2.5 acres, and we had every kind of animal. We had horses, we had dogs. You can see my daughters holding the little dogs, and those are little goats. We had pigeons, we had ducks, and then the last straw, my husband brought home a monkey. Can you believe a monkey? Oh my gosh. And it was swinging on the drapes and peeing on the kids, and I said, all right, that is the limit. That monkey has to be gone, or I'm gone. Probably the first time he listened to me, but anyway, they did take the monkey back. Yes, that was great. Now, this is another picture of my little family, and I wanted you to see as our welfare project, we picked grapes. Let's see, in the left corner, do you see that? I didn't know that grapes were dried raisins. So I learned really quick. We got up at dawn and picked grapes because in Fresno, by noon it was 100 degrees. I mean, you were cooking. So what we did is we'd pick the grapes and put them in a pan, and then we'd put them on newspaper, the grapes, so they would dry. And then later, after a couple of days, they would pick them up and take them and process them. But I didn't know that. And oh, that's a dirty job. Woo. But we loved running home at noon when we were all done and jumping in our pool. Many times it was so warm that I would work all morning, and by noon I'd have to have a swimming suit on and jump in my pool, or I couldn't work anymore. It was just too hot. It was a very hot place, but we loved it, and we served wherever we could. One time I even was asked to play the organ. Never played the organ in my life. I played the piano, but you gotta move your feet. I don't think I have very moving feet. It was a really struggle to play the organ, but I did. Well, in 1993, all my kids were married and gone. And I had been married for 34 years, and I had no husband either. So I prayed so hard, oh, Heavenly Father, what am I going to do? What shall I do? Prayed, and Lord answered. When I was walking my dog, I got a definite answer, go on a mission. So I went on a mission to Texas, Corpus Christi. That was my call, and it was very interesting because it was a lot different than I thought. My first missionary companion only came up to my shoulder, and she was from Haiti and spoke French. We were supposed to be teaching in English. Oh my gosh. Then I didn't realize, I didn't know you had to help people overcome their addiction. I didn't know how to tell people how to quit smoking or stop drinking coffee. So it was really an eye-opener for me and yet the people were so nice in Texas. They're very friendly, and we never had any problems finding people to teach. Now this girl right here, we taught her the lessons. We went out the night before, and she was all ready to be baptized. We did it after sacrament, and she, we thought we got the font all filled, everything, and we waited, and she didn't show. Oh, we thought, what do we do now? We were supposed to teach 5 lessons at that time. We'd already taught them all. So what do we do now? Oh, we prayed about it and prayed about it. We went out on Monday, and she said, yeah, she realized that Satan had gotten between us, between her. Well, we read the Book of Mormon. We discussed more, and 2 weeks later, we asked her, would you like to be baptized? And she said, yeah. So again, we got all ready with the baptism. And believe it or not, she came, and she had actually made a cake that said, choose ye this day whom you will serve. It taught me to never give up. You never know when they might, feel the Spirit and be baptized. Well, halfway through my mission, it was changed to Texas McAllen, and it was Spanish speaking. So I didn't have any MTC experience. I had to learn Spanish. Well, I can't say that I really was good at it, but I think I could give a couple of discussions in Spanish, and I did it. So it was a miracle. People were friendly, and it was a wonderful experience. And that's the chapel where we baptized Yvonne. Now, when I was at the MTC at BYU, we walked by the housing at BYU, and I thought, oh, that would be a fun job, to work at BYU. And so on my P Day, I wrote for an application. And then about a month before I got released from my mission, I said, do you think you'd have any openings? And they said, yes, they thought they might. And oh my gosh, what a miracle. They hired me over the phone. They gave me things that had happened in the dorm, and I tried to tell them my best ability what I would do, and they hired me. What a miracle. So 8 days after my mission, I started working at BYU Provo. I worked there 12 years, and I became known as Sister Van, because, see, my name was Van Wagenen, and so they called me Sister Van, even on my mission, so it's just continued, so I've got lots of names. Anyway, every semester I would have 300 more boys. This is the building, 6-story high, and this is the office, and I did some of the things that we do here. I put work orders in to make everything was good, and then I also had custodial that cleaned the bathrooms and the hallways, but I had to help the boys decide to clean their rooms. I had to motivate them, because we had cleaning inspections once a month, about 300 rooms. And you know, some boys didn't know how to do that. But two things, they love food and they love parties. So I would bribe them to do those things. And we would get those rooms, we did it. And then the next thing I was responsible for was discipline. Well, a lot of people think that discipline is a negative thing, but it's really not. It's helping people be responsible for their actions. So I was walking up on one floor one day, and there were little dots on this beautiful blue carpet, little dots. And so I didn't know what they were. I thought maybe it was bleach that had been dropped, you know. And well, we found out who did it, and he came and he said that he did it, and he had a bowling ball, a brand new bowling ball, and he just, you know, threw it down, and it just burnt the carpet in all these little spots. So what should I do? Should I let him just forget about it? No. He needs to learn the responsibility for his actions. So I went up and I said, okay, let's figure out how much this would cost. You know, we measured it out and we figured it out. And so he had to get a job to pay. He brought his paycheck to me. Now, if I had not done anything, what might have happened? He'd do it again, probably. But because he had to pay for that, he'll never do that again. He became responsible for his actions. And I was responsible to make sure that all these young men knew what was right. Now, I had 6 young men, one on each floor, most of the time returned missionary, that would help me. And they were good examples. And then one of my RAs was also cougar, was a cougar, so I had to have my pictures, you know. Well, I loved working there, but it really kept me on my knees because there was never anything the same. Like the dividers were taken out of the bathrooms, things like that. And so I just had to rely on Heavenly Father so much. Can you help? What should I do? And everything had to be dealt with. I couldn't ignore it. Otherwise, they'd think it was all right. So, I did that for 12 years. And I just loved the boys, and it was just great. But when I turned about 68, I realized that I'm the only old one here. Maybe I should think about retiring. So I thought, what should I do again? I was praying, should I live with my kids? Should I buy a house? What shall I do? And the next morning, I get a phone call. This is Fern. Is that possible? The guy I was engaged to the first time? I was, after 46 years. His wife had passed away, and this is a picture of us when we were in college. And then this is when we got married, when I was 68 and him a little 46 years later. Well, and then we decided to get married on Valentine's Day. So that was really a big deal, especially at the marriage capital, BYU. So they even made a huge cake and had a guy jump out at a shower. So we had a great time there, and we were married on Valentine's Day in the Provo Temple. So now, one of the things that impressed me about Fern, of course, he gave me another ring. But he said, do you want to go on another mission? And I said, oh, yes, I loved my mission. I wanted to go. Well, he had not been able to go because he lived in the days when only one missionary could go. The rest had to go in the armed service. So he went into the army in the Korea. And so we decided that we wanted to go on a mission, and we put our papers in to go on a mission. Well, we had learned a lot about church history. We thought, we would love to go to Nauvoo. And they said, you and half of the senior people will put their applications. Perhaps some of you maybe wanted to go to Nauvoo. Well, let me tell you, the Lord answered our prayers. We got to go to Nauvoo. It was so wonderful. We enjoyed it so much. Fern got to drive the horses and the oxen, and then the women most of the time worked in the sites. But just keep in mind, there was a script for every site. So if you worked in Brigham Young, you had to memorize that, and so you could tell it to other people. Or the Wilford Woodruff home. So there was a lot of memorizing. And then about the second week, they called you all down to interview for Rendezvous, which is a little play, and some by the Mississippi. Well, Fern was a good singer, and I sang quite a bit too. And believe it or not, we got the little vignette of Thomas and Elizabeth. And I played the girl that did not want to go. It would be suicide, I said. And so he tries to talk me into going west. And at the end, of course, I gave in, and we sing, and so Nauvoo, we say goodbye to you. And we performed that 80 times. 80 times, because sometimes we would do more than one show. Then we were having such a good time, we thought, well, we'll extend. Well, we did, but little did we know. They put us in a different play. We had to learn again. We had to memorize again. And we played Noah and Sophia, and performed that 40 times. So think twice before you want to go to Nauvoo. There's a lot of memorization. And then we also, for Sunset on Mississippi, we played the spoons and the harmonica and all those fun things. And it was a wonderful mission. And especially enjoyable with a really good companion. Oh, it was so great. Now, when our mission was over, we thought, what can we do? Again, neither one of us had a home. Fern's house had been sold, and we thought, well, believe it or not, one of our children again said, well, come and live with us. They have an apartment above our garage. And we said, okay. And so we ended up in Logan. Oh my goodness, I didn't even know where Logan was, I don't think. Especially because Utah State, I mean, after all. So we ended up there, and we lived with them for about 9 months in their apartment, but then their daughter got married and needed that apartment. So we bought a house, and we lived there 13 years. And what wonderful people they are in Cache Valley. They are very dedicated people. And my husband, when he was made the high priest group leader, but wasn't long before he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. He was released, and so then I got to be released out of prison. What an honor to be able to serve. And our ward was kind of different because we had the older people kind of like us that had lived there, and then we had half of Aggie Village. And so we had all the young marrieds. And it was wonderful to serve them. I think I made at least 36 receiving blankets to all the new babies that were born there. So it was quite an experience. We lived there for 13 years. My husband passed away in 2008. And now, this is what I do. With all my grandchildren, with 25 grandchildren and 30 great-grandchildren. And we just love being here. And it's truly a miracle that you can see that. I mean, I never dreamt I'd be here. My life has been a miracle, and I love every one of you. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you all. I look at you and I think, oh, those are all my friends. Thank you.
Before you break away,